The Battle of Uhud. This is an approximate illustration of the city of Al-Medina from the Prophet's mosque to the mountain of Uhud during the time of the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. This illustration is based on maps of Al-Medina Al-Munawwara issued by Al-Medina Secretariat and satellite images. All the sources we relied on agreed that the polytheists' army had arrived within the swamped area near the valley of Qanat, in front of Jabal Aynain, at southwestern corner of Uhud. They released their camels and horses to pasture on the Muslims' farms at a place called Samgha. The Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, led the Muslims out from the Prophet's mosque after Asr prayer on Friday the 14th of Shawwal in the 3rd year after Hijri. They passed through Thaniyatul Wada' to Shawt, where Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul and his fellow hypocrites retreated. The Muslims marched on, after a short halting, unto Shaykhain fortress, where they camped and performed the Fajr prayer. On their way, they marched a little to the east to avoid passing close to the polytheists. They passed by district of Banu Haritha until they arrived at the valley of Uhud, close to the alley of Qanat. The sources defined the place where the Muslims halted between the slope of the valley and the mountain of Uhud. This place is the narrowest space in the valley. Presently, Qanat Valley is situated on the western side. There is a narration affirming that there was a stream between the mountain of Aynain and Uhud mountain. It might have been a major or even a secondary stream. But then it was already dry and shallow anyway, and was nearly a plain surface. Selection of this place is an extremely wise decision in confronting the numerical superiority of the polytheists. It was one of the traditions of war that the two warring armies should line up and face each other. The Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, lined the Muslims up with their faces towards facing Al-Medina and their backs towards Uhud. Jabal Aynain was towards their left, and 50 archers were positioned on it. The polytheists also lined up to confront the Muslims, their faces towards Uhud and their backs towards Al-Medina. Their cavalry was on their right side under the leadership of Khalid ibn al-Walid and Ikramah ibn Abu Jahl. All the reports agreed that the events of the battle went on in the following sequence. The bearer of the polytheist standard, Talha ibn Abi Talha, came forward seeking duel. Ali ibn Abu Talib came out to confront him. The sword fight then took place between the two men, while the two armies looked on. Ali killed Talha, and the latter's brother Uthman came forward, and Hamza ibn Abi Talib confronted him and killed him. The polytheists marched forward and the Muslims confronted them, and the battle started on a 1-to-1 basis. The Muslims concentrated on the bearers of the polytheist standard and killed 8 of them in sequence, and their standard fell down. The polytheist cavalry tried 3 times to storm the terrain from the side of Mount of Aynain, but the archers positioned there repelled them. The polytheists became disintegrated after the fall of their standard and started to retreat. The Muslims pursued them, and some followed them to their camps. Then, the polytheist women started fleeing towards the mountains. Some Muslims were preoccupied with collecting spoils of war left behind by the fleeing polytheists, and they entered some of their camps in search of spoils. The areas around the first arena of the war became also deserted, and many Muslims were scattered far away from it. The 50 archers thought that the war was over, so most of them came down from the hilltop and followed their colleagues in collecting war spoils in spite of the warning of their leader and his reminding them of the Prophet's instruction that they should not leave their positions. The reports mention that Khalid ibn al-Walid observed that most of the archers had left their positions and as such ferociously attacked the few ones who had remained in their position, without mentioning the way he took or that he outflanked them from behind. In view of the nature of the ground in which the battle took place, we can believe that Khalid's attack on the archers was a direct one. He did not need to outflank them from behind because of their fewness. If there was any outflanking, it should have been from the south of Aynain Hill, through the valley of Qanat. The reports mention that Khalid and his cavalrymen launched a surprise attack on the Muslims who were scattered in their pursuance of the polytheists. Khalid's surprise attack on the Muslims alerted the retreating polytheists. Amr al-Haritha raised the banner of the polytheists and they started attacking the Muslims anew. The balance of the battle started changing as a result of the Muslims scattering and the numerical superiority of the polytheists. There were sporadic confrontations in the area. Some Muslims fought on gallantly and some became confused and even disorganized. But only a few of them actually fled. Mus'ab ibn Umayr, the bearer of the emigrant standard, was martyred and the standard fell down. Other Muslims were also martyred. The reports say that the place of the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, was at the far end of where the Muslim army was situated. There was a small group of companions with him when he saw what had happened to the Muslims after the attack launched against them by the polytheist cavalry. He started calling them to come together. Some polytheists heard his voice and marched towards his direction to kill him. Some of them were able to reach him and even inflicted injuries on him in his face. The companions who were around him valiantly defended him, leading to 11 of them being martyred. May Allah be pleased with them. A number of Muslims heard his call and moved towards him. Battle of swords and spears ensued. The polytheists were able to spot the Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. The group that surrounded with the Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, took him into the innermost of the valley. Some polytheists attacked them on the way, but they were repelled. The group was able to arrive with the Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, at a safe place at the foot of the mountain. Some of the polytheists ascended the mountain, but some of the companions drove them back down. The polytheists realized that they could do no more harm to the Muslims than what they had already done. Their leader, Abu Sufyan ibn Harb, called out that this battle was in place of the Battle of Badr, where the polytheists were also defeated, and that they would return to fight the Muslims again in the following year at the same place in Badr. They then withdrew and went back to Mecca. The Muslims returned to the battleground. They collected their fallen martyrs led by the chief of the martyrs, Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib, whose body was already mutilated by Abu Sufyan's wife. The Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, along with those who were with him, performed funeral prayer on the martyrs. He invoked Allah for them and they were buried on the ground where the battle took place.
ولقد صدقكم الله وعده إذ تحسونهم بإذنه حتى إذا فشلتم وتنازعتم في الأمر وعصيتم من بعد ما أراكم ما تحبون منكم من يريد الدنيا ومنكم من يريد الآخرة ثم صرفكم عنهم ليبتليكم ولقد عفا عنكم والله ذو فضل على المؤمنين.
And Allah did indeed fulfill His promise to you when you were killing them with His permission. The noble verses were revealed explaining the lessons of this battle and directing the Muslims to completely abide by the commands of Allah and His Messenger, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. The verses also taught them that if they were afflicted with a calamity, they should remember that they had also afflicted their enemies with similar calamity, and that they shall afflict them with more, and that they should exercise patience, rely on Allah, and continue to obey Him and fight in His way. The Battle of Uhud was full of lessons that abide forever. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon the Messenger, his household, and his companions.